Hello, I'm Kush. I'm playing Slime Rancher 2 here and there. Slime Rancher 2 is a continuation of the first Slime Rancher title, where you receive a mysterious letter which informs you there is more to explore. After a short sail, you arrive at the start of your new adventure. I'm not too far into Slime Rancher 2, although I have a short history with the game. You see, I used to really enjoy speedrunning the first Slime Rancher. It was a game I was slightly familiar with at the time, and I wanted to experiment with speedrunning. It posed many new ideas about the game which I found to be interesting, most notably that you can objectively find a finish to a seeming never-ending experience. Though, most recently, thinking on this topic, I started to think, what do video games offer us? It's a very wide and subjective question, and I will do my best to tackle major points of interest when it comes to finding games, sticking with games, and more importantly, what we get out of games. Very much like last time, these are my musings and nothing more than my observations and thoughts with no real or official study to speak of. I hope you enjoy, and thank you for watching. Video games have been around for a long time, and through time, video games have been able to solidify different genres. Whether you're from a time of platformers and arcade racing or of the age of VR, there were different established genres for you to choose from. As a young child, you're limited to what is available to you, usually curated by your guardians, and your selection of games would most likely be governed by your guardians. The most amount of time that you would get would be also supervised by your guardians. So, as a child, it's hard to think about the different genres in gaming. When I was young, I had acquired a decent library of video games and video game consoles. Having a strong interest had led me to constantly be asking for new video games or video game rentals. Shoutouts to Blockbuster. Even then, as a child, I didn't consider the wide array of selection that I had. I would just play what I felt like playing next. These days, after having many experiences and many years of consideration on those experiences, I can safely say things are a little different now. The amount of time that I spend browsing my library is maddening. It's like looking into a full fridge and not being able to decide what to eat. You're hungry, the food is in front of you, though it takes time. Your consideration takes over and you think about the possible decisions. Should you have steak? You just had steak recently. In fact, I don't have any barbecue sauce left, and I would really like that for steak. Maybe I can have soup. Soup isn't too filling, and what if I'm hungry afterward? Maybe I can have something with the soup. These thoughts would just continue until you eventually do decide and move on with your life. This is a thing. People experience this. I have even seen a couple of different choosing a video game flowcharts from people that have noticed the phenomenon happen and attempted to do themselves and the world a favor. These things are massive and in-depth. Even so, these charts are tiny compared to the amount of video game content that is out there. From all of the obscure titles to titles that have just aged and didn't make the cut, they're also a little dated at this point, which makes these issues even more prevalent. The idea here is that you have the ability and can make these decisions easier for yourself if you ever find yourself in this predicament. So, we've recognized this issue. What can you do about it? Or why would you want to do anything about it? Well, firstly, it helps to cut down on time. If you have a general idea of what you like and have a hard time choosing an exact title, it can narrow your choices down to that perfect game. It can also help you find new experiences. Have you ever heard of Pandora? It's an internet radio that was popular but never really as good of an experience as YouTube or Spotify. Think of this concept like the concept for Pandora. Games have these sorts of tags or descriptors that you can then find similar titles if you enjoy a title with the shared tag or descriptor. Hey, you like Slime Rancher? Maybe you'll like Slime Rancher 2. But seriously, if you enjoy a game, let's say Minecraft. Much like Slime Rancher, Minecraft is a casual, chill, creative survival experience with no real discernible end until you hit it, letting the players spend as much time to think of and do the things that they want in their world. It wouldn't be a bad suggestion for people who play either of these games to try out the other, especially if it is going to be a new experience for the player. There's many factors to this which I will attempt to cover, like external factors, and MMOs are a good example here. WoW and Final Fantasy XIV, you would think if these people had infinite time that most people would enjoy both of these games. I mean, they're both very polished and successful MMOs, which have garnered a lot of varied experiences for players to take on their own role and lead the adventure that is truly theirs. When in reality, one guy likes to PvP and the other likes to fish. However, even when games are similar and good enough, people from one franchise despise the other just for being there. I haven't really understood things like this myself. Much like console wars, I'm just drawing a blank here. These external factors, however, should be considered, especially if you're planning to spend a good amount of time on something like an MMO. Now, just because a game is an MMO or shares a genre with another game doesn't necessarily mean that you will like it. A good example of variation in the genre is Black Desert Online. Black Desert Online is an Eastern theme MMO which is PvP focused. While WoW does have some PvP to speak of, I feel as if BDO has made PvP a main element of the game. For many players in Black Desert, your gear is what you spend all of your time on efforts on. The upgrading system, your bane. You use what is considered fail stacking to acquire better chances of upgrading high tier equipment. Failing at high tier upgrades result in the gear going down a tier. The system was also seen in MapleStory 2 for its short tenure, though I never really got too far in MapleStory 2 myself, and now won't be able to. With that aside, however, you can see how you can find similar systems in games and be able to tell from a glance whether it is something that will be a positive or a negative for you in a game. Sometimes, however, something catches your eye, something looks really cool. To hell with the genre that seems like a game I want to play. Maybe it is a genre you really enjoy and it has all of the right things and it looks amazing. Maybe it's a type of game you don't really like, but the style of game is so enticing. In moments like these, I encourage you to try the new experience. You'll never know what you'll find. Maybe you learn that you really enjoy games with a cute aesthetic, or maybe you find out that space games are really your thing. Maybe you just love phony, realistic look of sim games. Whatever it is, I say go for it.
Actually, just like the worst. 1%, okay, dude? 1%. He just got healed. Oh! Oh!
But after all that, what can you take away? You can learn about not only the genres of games, but the aspects of games that you like to look for other games that share that aspect. We've learned that although games might be in the same genre, they can vary greatly with the systems used in the games. We've taken some time to look into external factors and how they can sway opinion, and we also touched on the concept of stylized games and trying new experiences if something catches your eye. So for me, should I play Slime Rancher 2? After what we've just mentioned so far, I don't think it's a bad idea, and I like the casual experiences of management type games and the cute aesthetic of Slime Rancher 2. So far, the game checks off all of the boxes for me, though maybe not all of them if we move on. There are different experiences in video games to enjoy. The average video game completion time back in the early 2000s for a game like Resident Evil, according to videogames.com, was 2 hours and 45 minutes, whereas nowadays Resident Evil Village boasts a hefty 10-hour average runtime, which objectively is a good thing. Think about it, in an economic sense. You spend about $60. Would you rather get almost 3 hours worth of experience from it, or would you rather get the 10-hour worth of experience? Games nowadays are taken more seriously. They're done differently. Early Resident Evil titles took a very passive approach to storytelling. Sure, Chris and Jill were running around and there was a story there. Though to find the deep lore about what was actually happening behind the scenes, the player would have to seek out different sorts of note and diary entries revealing the plans and movements of what they were looking into. From ragged diaries that show the slow degradation of a man until he can only write 4 itchy tasty, to official documents belonging to Umbrella revealing all sorts of in-depth lore which you can follow, whereas now I feel much more of the story is given to you in these intricate cutscenes where the narrative went more aggressive than previous titles. Aspects like this are things to look out for in games. There are people who really enjoy looking for the story and piecing things together, and then there are people who really enjoy the cinematic experience, to be able to follow the story and be immersed in this insane world without having to go too far for the lore. Admittedly, I haven't delved too far into the newer Resident Evil titles, so tell me if I'm missing something here. While this is a strong example, you can find all sorts of different aspects of games which would make them more appealing or less so to you. Let's take FPS for our next example. Even though FPS is a pretty straightforward genre, through the ages the genre has evolved into different sorts of experiences you can have. Let me first introduce the concept of repetition or adventure. Let me also associate strict examples for this concept. I will be using the new Gundam Evolution as my association for repetition, and I will use Fortnite for my association for adventure. Before we start, let me say that I do acknowledge that there are single-player adventure experiences, but this is more of an esoteric type of adventure, like you make the adventure. And I also know that Fortnite isn't necessarily an adventure game, but this is to express an idea for people to look out for these experiences, even in games which aren't inherently meant for those experiences. So let's break it down. Gundam Evolution is a 5v5 experience where players play as Gundams.
Wow!
To complete competitive objectives familiar to the genre, things like demolition, where you plant a bomb and the opposing team tries to defuse it across multiple bomb sites, and domination, a game type where you hold multiple positions while the positions activate. The players must attack or defend said active positions. This game, I'd imagine, is going to be compared to hero shooters or games like Overwatch. This dynamic is familiar enough for me, and I can safely say you can learn through repetition your favorite way to play a map or a class, and get better through that repetition. The maps stay the same, and you move along the same paths, you do the same things, not much should differ in this environment from game to game. Maybe you like repetition, maybe you enjoy the competitive nature. I was really into competitive FPS back in the times of Call of Duty 2 and Counter-Strike Source. I loved owning in on my ability and being able to provide my team with what we needed to win. Competitive environments are a subject of their own though, and deserve their own video to fully convey what I'd like to try to provide. With a game like Fortnite, however, you are dropped into a big map which you choose where to land. The game then dictates where you will go via a circle and a storm. The circle will show the player where to go next to be safe from the incoming storm, which slowly damages the player until they perish. Though, because the map is so expansive, the player can decide how they will go through the round. Maybe the player finds a loadout they really enjoy, or maybe they have to make do with the equipment they don't enjoy. Maybe they pass through every town in a car for most of the match. Maybe they're bloodthirsty and acquire 15 frags. It's more of an adventure than our other example, Gundam Evolution. This type of concept can be found in many different types of games. I love booting into a game and being surprised by how much I want to make an adventure out of it. RimWorld for me is a good example. Once I got familiar enough with this game, I really enjoyed keeping a chronology and history of my colonists, the things they did and the art that they made, which represented most of the time events that happened within the colony. So look for that sense of adventure, or really that type of feeling that makes you feel at home in that game that you really are just enjoying at that moment. We all have different reasons for why we even play games, let alone play specific types of games. So let me take this moment to break away from the video and say, enjoy yourself, love yourself, take care of yourself. If you find yourself not getting good sleep or not really taking time to enjoy decent meals, let me encourage you to just enjoy life. Do the things that you need to do for yourself, whether it's settling into a slime ranch or taking a long hot shower. Take care of yourself and enjoy what you have. We all have personal reasons for what we do in video games. This is another thing that you can think of to help you decide what you want in video games. Some people are after achievements, being able to conquer the harsh conditions set by the game and overcome what is thrown at them to be presented with a trophy, a memory for them to think back and even show off if they wanted. Some people are after that recognition, and you shouldn't be ashamed of it. Some people want to push themselves, making the game become a science in which they are the alchemists, mastering an art after the effort and time that they put in. Some people just want to relax. They want to find that nice experience to settle into after a long day, or even just because that's what they want. Being able to enjoy yourself with video games is the point. Whatever your reasoning may be, take time to recognize it and find what you want out of the seas of titles that are out there. So let's take a second to recap on what was said so far and how that can help us find what we want in a video game. We touched on how gameplay can be valued in different ways, with examples like Resident Evil and having personal reasons.
One just appeared right in front. There's more here! Oh, I'm fucking coming! Okay, sorry about that.
We also went over the concept of repetition and adventure, where I detailed two different types of games to express two different types of meta-genre within the FPS genre. This will all help finding different aspects of gameplay to help you recognize and decide whether or not a game is right for you. How does all this tie into Slime Rancher 2? Well, the casual experience is something that I enjoy. I mentioned it earlier that I enjoyed management games, and this game is not too demanding in that aspect. I know that the management aspect, if melded into other genres, can be annoying at times while you're trying to focus on the other aspects of that game. You can really just chill and enjoy yourself. I also have a personal reason, at least, to check out, as I had enjoyed the first title in the series, so I'd say overall Slime Rancher 2 still seems like it's up my alley, and I should play it. Some aspects of gaming aren't inherently found in the games themselves. One thing I really enjoy myself is being able to share experiences with others and find new and interesting views for the experiences that I enjoy. Sometimes this comes in the form of advice or learning a new game. Other times it's from sharing stories about our adventures, trials, and triumphs. One thing I can usually count on is catching another person's perspective at some point in time. When Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 came out, the recent HD release of the old fan favorite video game with the same title as Jammed Into One, I remember telling my brother that I couldn't wait to catch a speedrun for the game. And that's something that I didn't even consider back on the N64 and Dreamcast, and how could I? My exposure to gaming, what I knew about gaming, was all done in my living room. There was no way to reference against others' experiences or discover new aspects of gameplay and mechanic. There was no easily accessible means for viewing content such as YouTube. The most accessible means of video game content were through sites like videogames.com and gamefacts.com. Though nowadays it was something that I was already familiar with, and at that point I had confidence that there would be a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 speedrun. And there was. The Tony Hawk's Pro Skater speedrun is an example to not let your judgment or creativity be hindered, to seek out and experience ways to further your experience if that's what you like. Maybe you play Minecraft and want to turn your little cardboard box into an amazing castle or a neat factory. Or you want to increase your kill count on your strange equipment in TF2. Maybe you're just pushing for your favorite competitive game for that elusive rank you haven't hit yet. Whatever the reason, I hope you have fun and really enjoy the art of what you're doing. You never know, maybe someone will be interested in checking out what your efforts and motivations have resulted in at some point. Creativity is amazing, and it doesn't just stop at one person's creation. Use the creativity of others to springboard your own. You never know what people could come up with, and the inspiration could stick with you to be more creative in other avenues of life. This is something that I like to say when talking about music, but it fits here, and I wanted to express that idea with you all. Be creative. Even if your creativity is derivative, be creative and springboard off of that until you find your unique style and experience that you can bring into the world. Make something beautiful. I'm trying not to give examples here as to allow your mind to work and go for the goals that you want. Godspeed, gamer. Before we conclude, I would like to take a second to mention a specific game that really set me off on finding adventure and experiences in gameplay. This game was so vastly different than the objective-based games I was used to. It was very different from sandbox experiences I had, and it reminded me to just sit back and let my mind really be in control, to just enjoy a video game. A game that really expressed a freedom, that had objectives but a very strong sense of freedom as well, to just be a jerk. The game I'm talking about is Untitled Goose Game. This game reminded me that gaming wasn't about this objective experience, rather it was about the experience itself, being able to run around and cause havoc for this small town as you parade around with the sole objective of essentially reaching the end, doing all sorts of hilarious antics and leaving it all up to the player on how it's done. I remember this game really resonating with me. Up to that point, I was really just heavily into MMORPGs, and the game reminded me that there are experiences out there that are beautiful, that really encapsulate the video game spirit, to keep an eye out for those. You see, what I find in games may vary greatly than yourself. Maybe we see eye to eye on various subjects, or maybe you just don't care at all and want to go through your next Madden match or Final Fantasy XIV raid. Though what I find in games mostly are experiences to be able to share with others, to be able to be immersed and really enjoy a world and then share what I've done in that world with others. I really enjoy being able to find people who enjoy the same games as I do, primarily for this reason. Being able to talk shop or just in general share notable experiences is something that I always look forward to. I play and have played many games, and it's always interesting to hear what someone has to say, whether what they're saying comes from a new or an old title. I also enjoy winning, which maybe is what you're into, in which case I encourage you to find the resources and be creative with your endeavors. Whether you're in it to win it or want to enjoy a casual experience, there's something for everyone in gaming, and that's the magic. The ability to get so much from a game across a wide variety of different types of players. All of that being said, should I really get into Slime Rancher 2? Honestly, yeah. It may not come as a shock, but there really isn't anything inherently wrong with Slime Rancher 2 to me. I enjoy what it has to offer, and I'm going to continue messing about in it from time to time. I got a good deal of value out of the first title as I was speedrunning it from time to time. However, I think with the second title, I will just sit back and enjoy Starlight Island and Rainbow Fields for what it has to offer on my initial launch. A new magical world to explore and venture forth in, to find new experiences and amazing times to share with others, to enjoy the things in gaming that I really enjoy. Lastly, to just relax.
Feel the wrath of Kush. Burn.